At least I'm not in the way people usually mean when they say that. You are not crying every day. You are not unable to function. You get up. You do the things. You show up to the life you have built. And from the outside, everything looks fine. But something is missing. Not dramatically. Not in a way you can point to and say, this is what I lost. Just a flatness that wasn't always there. A distance from your own experience that has become so familiar, you have almost stopped noticing it. This is about that. About what it feels like when aliveness quietly leaves, and about how it happened without you ever deciding to let it go. There is a version of being okay that is not okay. It functions. It manages. It gets through days and weeks and sometimes years without crisis, without collapse, without anything you could call a breakdown. But it is not alive in the way it once was. The things that used to move you don't quite move you the same way. The moments that used to feel significant pass through you more quickly now, registered, acknowledged, and then released before they have fully landed. And the most unsettling part is that this has become so normal that you have started to wonder if the version of you that felt more was the unusual one. You can remember, even if it takes a moment to access, a time when things felt different. When music could get somewhere in you, that surprised you. When anticipating something good produced a kind of warmth that lasted for days. When you cared about outcomes with your whole body, not just your mind, not just as a practical concern, but viscerally, genuinely, in a way that made the stakes feel real. When you were moved by things, by beauty, by connection, by moments of unexpected kindness, by the particular quality of light on an ordinary afternoon that made everything feel, briefly, exactly right. You remember that, or you almost remember it, like a language you once spoke fluently that now requires effort to access. And you are not sure exactly when that started. Not sure when the volume began to turn down, only that at some point, gradually, imperceptibly, it did. The disappearance of aliveness is rarely dramatic. It does not arrive as a crisis. It does not announce itself. It happens in the accumulation of small withdrawals. Each time you were disappointed and protected yourself by caring a little less next time, each time you were hurt and responded by becoming a little more careful, a little more guarded, a little less willing to be moved by things. Each time you invested in something, a relationship, a possibility, a version of the future, and it didn't arrive. And you filed that away, not consciously, but somewhere in you a quiet note was made. Care less, want less, feel less. It's safer that way. And the safety worked. The disappointments became more manageable. The losses hurt less because you had invested less. The uncertainty of wanting things was replaced by the steadiness of not wanting too much. But something else left with it. Something that was not just pain, but also aliveness. Something that made you susceptible to joy, in the same way you had been susceptible to hurt. The flatness is hard to describe to someone who hasn't felt it, because it is not sadness. Sadness has texture, has weight, has something to push against. This is more like the absence of texture, a life that is fine, that functions, that has good moments, genuinely good moments, but where even the good moments arrive and depart, without quite penetrating as deeply as they once did. You watch things that should move you. You experience things that used to produce joy, and there is something there, a recognition of what this should feel like. but the feeling itself arrives at a slight remove, like watching your own life through glass, present, but not fully inside it. And the part that is hardest to admit, you have gotten used to this. This has become the normal texture of days, and you are not sure when that happened, or whether the more alive version of you is still accessible, or whether this is simply what getting older feels like. I want to say something important. This is not aging. Aging brings its own changes, its own reconfigurations of what moves us and what matters. But the quiet disappearance of aliveness I am describing is not a natural consequence of time. It is a consequence of protection, of a nervous system that learned, through enough disappointment, to turn the volume down on everything. Not just pain, but pleasure. Not just vulnerability, but connection. Not just the risk of loss, but the full experience of being alive. And this matters, because the distinction changes what is possible. Because protection, unlike aging, is not irreversible. The volume that was turned down for a reason. And sometimes, when the reason is understood, when the protection is no longer necessary, it is possible for it to come back up. Not immediately, not without effort, but it is possible. Here is what I want you to consider. The aliveness did not leave. It went somewhere safer, somewhere underneath the careful distance, and the managed expectations, and the practiced steadiness that has become your way of moving through the world. You can still feel its edges. In the moments when something catches you off guard, a piece of music that gets in before you can stop it, a conversation that makes you forget to be careful, a moment of beauty that lands before your defenses do. In those moments, the distance closes, and something that has been very quiet makes itself known. That is not a coincidence. That is the aliveness, still present, still responsive, finding the gaps in the careful life you built around it. If you have been living at a slight remove from your own experience, I want to offer you something to sit with. Not a solution, not a prescription. Just this. The flatness is not who you are. It is what you built to survive something. And survival strategies are intelligent. They are not character flaws. They are evidence of a person who found a way to keep going when keeping going required keeping things at a distance. But you do not have to keep going in exactly the same way forever. The aliveness that went quiet, it did not leave because it gave up on you. It went quiet because quiet felt safer than continuing to reach toward things that kept not arriving. It is still there, quieter than it used to be, but still there, still yours, still waiting for a moment when safe and alive might finally mean the same thing.